Should companies and corporations be allowed to own large amounts of single family homes, which are effectively affecting families and individuals who would like to purchase single family homes to start their home ownership journey and help them build wealth as well? That is what we're talking about in this episode of the Greatest Asset Community Podcast. So there has been an ever growing gap between renting and the affordability of owning a home. So we know that interest rates played a factor, particularly in 2022 when we saw interest rates rising. But we also know that home prices played a huge factor as we saw that huge rocket ship of home prices going straight through the roof. Beginning around 2020 when the pandemic hit and interest rates were essentially at nothing, 2%, 3%, 4% interest rates, we saw home prices skyrocketing and a lot of people hopping in to try and buy homes. I say try to buy homes because one group of people, or one group entity, so to speak, that I should say, that actually came in and bought up thousands and tens of thousands of homes during this time period were corporations, institutional investors, businesses swooped in throughout 2020, 2021, even in 2022 and some in 2023, and bought up large amounts of single family homes. And so that had an effect on the housing market. So with the housing market, as with anything in business, a lot of it is supply and demand. The higher the supply, the lower the demand. Typically you have lower prices. Now, if you've got a low supply and a high demand, typically you have prices that are increased. Now, with the amount of properties that are owned by and were purchased by institutional investors, corporations, that has forced a lot of people to have to go toward renting. Now, you're going to have a lot of arguments that you may hear on this side of the fence or that side of the fence saying, oh, it doesn't matter that much or it doesn't move the needle that much. But I think when you look at this from a vantage point of just individual families and people that are being affected, I think that every life matters, whether or not you're affecting 50% of the lives or 5% of the lives. All of those lives do matter. And I think on the grand scale, it does have an effect, even if the true ripples of those effects, we don't know how far they reach. I think it still does have an effect overall. So, for example, I live in Atlanta. And I pulled up some stats in Atlanta, and these have actually been out there for a little bit. But in Atlanta is one of the worst cities for corporations coming in and buying up single family homes for rent. So there was a recent study that was done by Georgia State University and Rutgers University, and it revealed that 3 corporate entities owned over 19,000 single family homes, which accounts to almost 11% of the single family rentals or single family homes available to rent in the metro Atlanta area. So 19,000 homes divided by 3 companies. So those 3 companies, it was Invitation Homes, Pretium Partners, I think is how it's pronounced, and Amherst Holdings. So those 3 companies, Invitation Homes, Pretium Partners or Pretium Partners, and Amherst Holdings, own over 19,000 single family homes, which is almost 11% of the single family homes available for rent in the entire city of Atlanta. Now, I like to think of this from the standpoint of that's 19,000 families or individuals who are not able to purchase because those homes are all owned by one entity. So my question to you is, should there be a law? Should there be a rule where a company, a corporation, an LLC is limited to how many single family homes they can own? And should that be a law in general? And should that be put in place simply for the fact of allowing more people who actually want to invest in single family homes as their primary residence to be able to purchase those homes and own them and build their wealth that way as well? It's just a thought. I know we live in a very capitalistic society where, it's free for people, businesses, corporations to go out, buy what you want essentially. And as long as you're operating within the guidelines of the county and the city or the state where you live in, there's nothing against that legally. But my question is, should there be something that is put in place to stop these companies and corporations from owning literally thousands of single family homes? Because as someone who works with home buyers and real estate agents who are also working with home buyers on a regular basis, and they're out there trying to search for homes to purchase, there are two sides of this equation that I've seen. On one side of the equation, there are the buyers that have had a really hard time finding something to purchase. And for a lot of the homes that they were able to find, particularly, through 2020 and, up to more recently, those great deals, so to speak, were bought up by investors who could afford to pay well above asking price, which many home buyers that were looking to purchase those homes for their primary residence just didn't have the money. They weren't qualified to go up that high to be able to purchase those homes well above asking price. So it kind of creates this unfair competition, if you will, where you have corporations that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions, in some instances, billions and billions of dollars that they can throw into a market such as real estate and completely change and shift the dynamics of that market in their favor, because as you buy up a lot of supply, there's less supply that's available to meet the demand. Well, if you know anything about housing already has a shortage issue. We already have fewer homes than what we need in order to meet the demand that we have for housing. Well, when you have corporations going out and purchasing hundreds and thousands of single family homes, that's further affecting the supply, which adds to an increase in the value of those homes. It adds to an increase in the price of those homes. And if you're looking in the housing market, you may have seen that, where you see those home values going up higher and higher. Well, that's one of those things where it's like, what, would it be advantageous? Would it be something that, city officials, city council members, whoever should consider implementing, a rule or regulation, something to where it regulates or puts a cap on how many single family homes a corporation or company can own? Because when you have one company that can come in and essentially own 8,000 homes in one city, so we're not even talking about across the whole US, we're talking 19,000 homes just in the city of Atlanta. That's not including all these other cities where they own homes, just the city of Atlanta alone. And if you space it out to beyond these three companies, those numbers shoot even higher. But just with those three, we're talking 19,000 homes. So it's one of those things where there is an effect that it does have on the housing market for sure. There's an effect that it has on individual families who would like to purchase these homes to live in and help build their wealth and everything like that. But I want to bring you to another thing as well. So there is a lot of building going on, not just in Atlanta where I live, but also in other cities around the country as well. There are a lot of builders who have been building homes trying to combat the supply demand issue that we have in housing. With that, all of the building that's been going on has not been building homes that are going to be sold to people who are looking to purchase homes to live in. There have been a lot of built to rent communities that have been popping up in various places across the country, particularly in the city of Atlanta as well. But they've been in other cities and states across the country as well. So with that paints an interesting dynamic as well, where you have builders that are building homes for the purpose of renting them out, not the purpose of selling them. So again, you're seeing a shift in the real estate market where more and more companies and corporations are seeing that, hey, we should be buying up a bunch of single family homes. People want to live in single family homes. Maybe a lot of that was spurred on by the push into people wanting to just have their own space, in the pandemic, essentially, because when the pandemic hit, you had a virus going around. People didn't know a lot about it. A lot of people didn't want to live in close quarters in apartment buildings with a lot of other people. So a lot of people ended up moving to homes. And then we had the whole work from home thing, where now you had a lot of companies and corporations that were willing to do hybrid work, where it was part in office, part at home. Some companies went completely virtual, and they allowed their employees to completely work from home and not have to come into an office building. And so you had a huge shift to people looking to have a more comfortable home life and not having to constantly go into work, live in an apartment, and go to work. So with that shift, more people started to place a higher value on living in a single family home, something that had a little bit more space, something that could provide you a little bit more comfort for where you would be staying and spending most of your time at, because maybe you have your office set up in there, you've got your personal area as well away from work, just something that you could really maximize to be a work and home area, which works better in a single family home than it does in an apartment. And so I think that also played a factor into it too. So I'm not saying it's just one thing, but there are a lot of things that played a factor into the value of homes increasing, because more people wanted to shift toward those single family homes. But with that, the people who had the deep pockets, or the companies and corporations which had the deep pockets to be able to capitalize on that opportunity, are the ones that were best positioned to be able to take advantage, because they could shell out hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars into buying up single family homes and then renting those out to people. Hey, you can rent from me, and I'm gonna take care of the home and everything. And as much as you may hear from some of these corporations and companies of how it's cheaper for people to rent than to own, understand that it's to their benefit to have you rent and not own. Because if it were truly a money losing endeavor for you to be renting a single family home rather than owning a single family home, there's no way that they would have went out and bought so many single family homes just to rent out to people, if truly it wasn't it wasn't beneficial to be a homeowner of a single family home. So again, when you're hearing all that rhetoric from someone or some entity in particular who owns thousands and tens of thousands of single family homes, and they're like, well, it's better for you to rent, always take that with a grain of salt, because you hear things from one person, but you see their actions doing something completely different. Don't follow people's words per se. Follow what it is that they're doing and see what the opportunities is that they're trying to capitalize on. But all that aside, because I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but in any case, getting back to the crux of everything is that we've got this issue, this problem of affordability in housing in this country. We've got this issue where people want to purchase homes, but home prices are continually creeping up. And it's actually over the next few years projected that home prices are going to continue to appreciate, as is normal. Even if you look over the last 60 plus years of the housing market, on average, we're looking at about a 4% appreciation year over year. So that's normal. However, you've got that coupled with people's income, which has not been increasing at 4% year over year to keep up with the housing market, or to keep up with inflation for that matter. So we've got this disparity, really. We've got this, uneven balance of people that are wanting to purchase something that is constantly becoming more and more out of reach for them. So what is the answer? I think it's more than just one thing that you can point the finger at. I think it's a lot of different issues and problems. But I think one of the things when it comes to housing that can at least start to move the ball in the direction that would be more advantageous for people being able to enter into the home ownership market and purchase a home is by limiting and putting a cap on how many single family homes corporations and companies can own. Because that in and of itself is going to allow more individuals, more families to have the opportunity to get into home ownership. And in addition to that, also putting a limit or restrictions, regulations on built to rent communities. Not saying that you shouldn't have any. I'm neither here nor there when it comes to them. I mean, I'm a fan of ownership, but if there are people that want to live in a built to rent community, by all means, go live in a built to rent community. However, there are a lot more people, I believe, who would rather own the home that they live in and the ground underneath them. And so because of that, I think that limiting how many communities can be built for built to rent and how many homes can be owned by corporations, limiting that number significantly lower than the numbers of homes that can currently be bought, which is like unlimited. I think that would help to roll the ball in the direction that we want it to go. Start providing an actual service to the people that live in a community and in a city, rather than allowing corporations and companies to dictate so much of people's lives. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Hopefully it's been, if nothing else, eye-opening for you to at least hear some of this information and consider some of the things that might end up being solutions that could help you or help someone else that you know be able to purchase a home and start building that wealth through home ownership. Because if the ball continues to roll in the direction that it's been going, that wealth is going to end up all in the hands of a small group of corporations, companies, and individuals who can afford to buy up everything. And then the rest of us will just be renting from them forever, essentially, because as that gap continues to widen, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for you to cross from one side over to the other. So hopefully this has brought shed some light on some things, and also pushed a little bit of urgency behind you in terms of not just waiting to get into the housing market. If you do have an opportunity that shows up to be able to purchase a home, get into home ownership, maybe you look at taking advantage of that opportunity, realizing that there are companies and corporations who have already shown that they will shell out lots and lots of money to take advantage of the opportunities in real estate, because real estate's not going away. We're not making any more of it. The value is going to continue to increase. And so make sure that you are on the front end of that in terms of doing what you can to position yourself to be a homeowner, take advantage of that appreciation and that equity gain through appreciation. And yeah, let's all just start moving toward a better direction for everybody. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. As always, check in with us on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, live on YouTube. This channel, we are going to be broadcasting home finance hacks, the tips, the tools, the tactics to give you all that you need to save hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of dollars when it comes to you purchasing a home as well. So please do tune in live on Tuesdays. And until next time, take care. Be blessed, and we'll see you in the next episode.